should set up Dodge with Karen, don't you think?
It's everything I never wore.
The sky is falling. I've been with a different girl every day. They don't care about diseases. Are you gonna call them back, or are you related? You know?
No, I don't.
You don't?
So, it's 21 days before the end of the world, and this movie asks, what would you do? You know, it's like some people, most of the world is going out and doing all kind of drugs, having sex with anybody, killing people if they want to.
Yeah, having the kids drink alcohol.
Having the kids do drugs and drink alcohol.
I'm going to Disneyland.
Yeah. I'm thinking, shit, I wouldn't know what to do if the world's coming, because I do that shit anyway.
Yeah, you live your life as if it was going to be no tomorrow.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, what? Now,
Why y'all crying?
I know, I'd be like, why? Okay, now everybody's catching up, you know?
The only problem with you is that everyone would be cock blocking you all the time.
Hey, that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Wait a minute. No, you know what? This is one of those quiet end of the world movies. It's one of those more romantic, contemplative end of the world movies. It's, while everyone else is going crazy and in a panic or doing whatever they want to do, this movie centers on a couple that might or might not be slowly falling in love. And I kind of appreciate that. I like those kind of sweet end of the world kind of movies.
Well, it's how many? There's actually a couple that have been sneaking out on DVD and stuff lately. I found out about. I was like, what is going on? I'm reminded of an old sci-fi story where they were slowly introducing these alien characters to the world on like sitcoms and like cartoons, and it turned out it was just because we really had made first contact with these aliens and they didn't want people to be freaked out. What's happening, Hollywood? Is there a meteor coming?
Well, I guess
what
it's
the fuck?
2012. You said that, like the Mayans are putting these movies out?
I'm saying that like maybe the end is nigh.
By the way, you don't think The Road is a sweet movie?
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Right.
a guy bonding with his son, you know?
Well, maybe not.
Dunce from last year?
Melancholia.
Melancholia, yeah.
Yeah, it's like someone saw Melancholia and went, you know what? This needs more laughs.
Right.
I always looked at those as the best family films of the year. So,
Yeah. No, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people who they don't know how to take a movie like this because, I mean, I was telling Coles when we walked out, I was like, this is the bitterest of the bittersweet.
Yeah.
You know, this is a movie where people they're moved by their lead characters and they're laughing, but they're knowing, I mean, this movie doesn't say whether it is or whether it isn't, but it is implying that there's an impending doom coming, and people walking out confused as hell about this movie.
Like they didn't see that coming, where it's, you know, throughout the entire story you're being told that, you know, there's a meteor that's going to crash into Earth where, you know, the chance of survival is zero. You know?
Right.
And whether this is going to happen or not at the end of the movie, people just, they just choose to ignore it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, it's like in your head because you know you're watching maybe, I don't know if this is an actual independent movie or it's actually has a real budget to it, but I mean, because you wouldn't really be able to tell watching the movie, but you know, it's like, it's one of those things where you know Bruce Willis isn't part of the cast, so you know you got to use your brain to really think that maybe this
really will happen.
Yeah, but the thing is, people want to always have that upbeat ending. So you know, whether this movie gives it to you or not, you're gonna have to go for yourself to go see.
You're looking around, going, "This is a big movie theater, and these are major movie stars in this film. Everybody's gonna live, right?" You know, I mean, I guess. And the thing is, the film like keeps pounding it into your head, as you said constantly. No, we're not kidding. This is the end of the world. This is what's gonna happen. There's no haha fooled you. This is the end of the world. Yeah. And even as an audience member, it is hard to accept that watching a movie, especially because this movie goes back and forth between very pensive and contemplative to just downright fucking goofy. And you're like, I don't understand what kind of movie I'm watching.
And I think that's one of the problems with the movie is that there's not that smooth transition back and forth. It's almost jarring the way it jumps between very serious and very goofy to where it's hard to like really take it all in and have it filled together. It's almost like, wait, are you guys just playing a bad joke on me? Because that whole feeling of like it's the end of the world, you're like, well, if it is the end of the world, what am I doing sitting in a theater watching a movie, watching these goofballs? Oh, wait, now it's serious. No, waka waka. I was like, I don't know. I'm having trouble just like really
connecting with it.
Connecting with
Really?
it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, no, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Well, the thing is that, you know, with that in mind, you know, I did actually kind of like just this jarring of the characters because I'm like, you know, that's kind of how you would act in a situation like this. You know, it's like, you know, especially dealing with these characters where you have one who seems to be more interested about his past life, about his love that got away, the one person who he's still constantly thinking about, to where that is now like consuming him. And you have this other character who's kind of just living in the moment, just realizing what's going to happen, what she needs to do, things that she may have thought that were important to her at one point aren't. And just when these two meet, it's kind of for me at least, it felt like they, as the movie progressed, it seemed like they started to clear their head, and what everything that was happening to them, it focused on what was really important, and that was just being with somebody that you have a real experience with.
I don't disagree with any of what you're saying, and it's the problem wasn't with those characters. I love both the primary characters in the film. I think both Steve Carell and Keira Knightley, they are shown in depth. We get to know a lot about them. We start to really care about them, as flawed and imperfect as they are, and we root for them to come to whatever they're going to come to before the world ends. But it's everybody else in the film. It's a lot of the supporting characters that just look like they're imported from a more typical Steve Carell comedy. You're like, why are they here?
Well, see, even speaking to that point.
Well, before you get to that point, because there's I really
You
want
guys
to
ever notice how this always gets cut off when I'm about to talk?
Well, because you're going for an hour and I need to stop you. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But we're talking about, the reason why I want to stop here is because we are talking about a lot of details that people probably haven't put together yet, which is, because you're talking about how we're dealing with these characters, how they're doing spontaneous things, and there should be some setup behind this, which is there is a meteor that is coming to Earth called Matilda. It's going to hit in 21 days. And it's going to, I don't know what kind of impact it has, but it's just going to evaporate everything on the planet.
I'd say a deep impact.
Yeah.
But you have to admire the fact that, even though it's off camera, Bruce Willis and crew get killed in this movie. It's just mentioned
they do.
Yeah, it's like, well, the crew from Armageddon went up there and they died. So I guess we're all fucked.
Yeah, at the beginning of the movie, they say, the NASA mission to go up and stop this meet. Well, everybody's fucked.
Well, that's the funniest scene in the whole movie to me. Is the movie opens and Steve Carell and his wife are sitting in the car listening to this radio report, and he looks over and she looks at him with a horrified look and gets out of the car and just starts running. And that's the last we see of
She's
her.
like, shit, you done taken enough of my life. I got 21 days. Let's get the fuck out of here. Make up for some lost time.
I know it's supposed to be sad, but I was laughing out loud.
But she just looks at him, just doesn't say a word. She opens the car. You could almost hear that.
Yeah, I know.
But
he's still filming now.
Yeah, but it's at this point where everybody really does. Everybody has a different reaction. Most people are just doing what they want to do. They're just having a good time. It really hasn't sunk in yet. They're going to die. They just know I have to really have a big party and an orgy before I leave. Steve Carell, of course, his name is Dodge. He's just walking around kind of in a daze. His wife just left, and he doesn't know how to really connect with anybody right now. But when his neighbor, Penny, played by Keira Knightley, reveals that she's a ditzy bitch who's been keeping all his mail because the mailman has been put in the wrong place, he gets his letter that's from the love of his life, saying that, there might be an opportunity here. And he decides to get Penny when there's this violent mob that erupts in the neighborhood, all this looting and shit. And they say, hey, we got to get out of here. This would be the perfect time to take a wacky road trip and go look for the love of my life, especially since Penny feels guilty for keeping the mail. She's like, I'm going to help you do this. That's when we get on this adventure where along the way they run into scenarios of high comedy, goofy comedy, and drama. And Leon, I'm gonna let you continue real quick after I mention this, because you're saying, at least you and Cyrus are saying it's like this thing didn't really gel together. But and a lot of kids are not gonna remember these shows. But do you remember something like Northern Exposure?
Yes,
where you had those different tones coming in and out.
Absolutely.
It went from like absurdist, crazy comedy to like serious plot lines, and that's kind of what this reminded me of. And I think it takes a special kind of screenwriter and director to actually make those things come together. And this is kind of the movie where I don't think it's going to work with everybody. Some people are going to say it did, and some people are going to say it didn't. Obviously, you didn't.
Well, as speaking to the point of Northern Exposure, I think Northern Exposure worked because it was a series, and it gave you a lot of time to really get to know the characters, and that's how it all stitched together. A big problem I have with this movie is how, even though I love all the concept of it, but the different pieces weren't working together for me, but also is how Steve Carell's character I thought was very underwritten.
So,
what are you doing with the rest of your life?
Little of this, little of that. Probably catching up on some me time. Find God. Maybe move around some chairs.
Well, maybe I'll run into you at a support group or a or an orgy or something.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Came in like it was almost like they said like, well, look, you've seen Dan in real life and you've seen Stupid Crazy Love. You know the kind of nebbish character who never really lived his life, and it's Steve Carell. You fill in the blanks. You got it from
Well,
here.
he's playing the realistic nebbish character who didn't really live his life, which is why I didn't mind it, though. Not this comic, one-dimensional guy. He's this guy who, like, he never really said much, but they say just enough to tell you volumes about him here.
I don't know. I felt like it was just a cipher from those other movies,
See,
and they were just relied on that.
Because somebody pointed that out to me, and I was like, I don't know why, because I haven't seen a couple of those movies where he was still playing that same character, even though I've seen trailers to where he's playing that, and I was like, for some reason, just the context of the film, that didn't bother me. It really didn't bother me at all. Even though I think his next film, he really needs to stop playing this somber character.
Yeah.
Like all I see is the only way I can relate to how he was playing it was whenever Michael Scott got depressed about something.
Right.
Whenever like his girlfriend did him wrong on fucking The Office. But I thought in the context of it, it actually did work for me. But as far as you guys are talking about how the humor kind of jumped up and down from serious to the more melodrama stuff, I thought I've never really seen Northern Exposure, but for some reason it wasn't a distraction. I didn't even really notice it. I just thought whenever they ran into these crazy ass people, it's like, yeah, you're going to meet crazy people at the end of the world where it's going to be so absurd. And I thought that they played it up to where it didn't feel like I jumped into another movie, because I liked how the main characters reacted to how these people were acting, like going, wow, let's, that seems like a crazy place. Like there was a great scene involving this restaurant called Frenzies,
right?
That, everyone in there, it was like they walked onto a sitcom, like one of the sitcoms they probably worked, like Michael Scott would be on it. But, for me, just their reaction to what was going on, I liked that. I enjoyed that.
Well, it was like a TGI Fridays where everybody took ecstasy.
Yeah, it was, and that's pretty much
I want to know where that is.
But the other thing, as far as if you want to get goofy, I always love these end of the world movies where you just have that mob, which I think I would be. What would we all do at the end of the world? I'd be hanging out that mob that just wants to break every goddamn window, flipping over every car, setting every goddamn thing on fire for no goddamn reason whatsoever.
You're right. That mob just comes out of nowhere. They're at every end of the world movie, and they're at every LA Lakers game.
Yeah, I know.
They just fuck everything. Whether you win or lose, they just turn over cars. And shit.
There's no rhyme or reason. It's like a force of nature just destroying everything in its path.
Some robots just want to watch the world burn.
Exactly.
Right before it burns.
Because that shit is cool.
Apocalypse comes, soccer hooligans are going to take over.
Yeah, they're ready. Shit, they've been practicing. But I agree with you guys. My biggest problem with the movie is that there are these scenes that just come out of nowhere, which don't really seem to like play into the story too much. You just seem to be there for a laugh.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I was asking myself more questions about a scene than laughing at it. Like the scene with the cop that's still on duty.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
That's still writing tickets. When they actually go to jail, it's a funny concept, but it just really seemed to bring the movie to a stop.
And that's what I kept having a problem. Like when they hit these situations, and as random as they might seem at first, I was like, all right, this is cool. I want to see where they're going to go with it. And I felt every one of them they trailed off from without really delivering a punchline. It was like they went in. It was interesting, but never interesting enough, and then we were moving on to the next thing.
Well, they wanted to write an in-depth movie about these characters, but other than that, they just wrote a very typical by-the-book road trip comedy.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, this is just like every other one like that you can think of. Hey, run into wacky people, it wraps itself up, move on the road, man, run into next group of wacky people, wraps itself up, move on down the road. And it was punctuated, though, by genuine emotional points. I mean, there's a whole scene with Steve Carell and his remaining parts of his family that was like, wow, that was really powerful. And just like I said, the connection that's growing between the two of them as they get to know each other, I think really is profound. But like ultimately, I kept going, but why should I care? Because there's 21 days left till the world ends.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe they should have done just a Harold and Kumar versus the end of the world or something. Maybe that's what this movie needed.
But you know what? You're right.
This movie needed a lot of weed or something.
Hey, you know what? If there's another Harold and Kumar movie, it will be the end of the world.
Yeah.
I like that last Harold and Kumar movie, but you know what? I mean, I think for me, what it is, I like the beginning of the first half of the movie. I like the second half. because that's where they played with the concepts of the world ending and how people were reacting. The only problem with that first part of the movie for me, and this is something somebody said, I didn't mind it so much, but it did kind of get annoying the more I thought about it, that this is a cameo movie too.
Oh, yeah.
You have all these cameos of people who are brought in just so you can say who they, oh, look at that, that's Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
But they're interesting characters, and they don't really develop them. Like, when you see that person, it's like, man, no, don't make that just a cameo. That character, I want to know more about what they do.
I felt that way too, because we're like, they're all like, him and Rob Corddry and all of them are just like
The mom
hey, man,
from American Horror Story with a universe-destroying cleavage.
Yeah, everybody from Children's Hospital, and they're like, "Hey, man, fuck it, we just like have a big orgy, just do everything we ever wanted to do," and he's just like, "I'm not doing this, I'm leaving," and I was like, don't run off like you think you're better than them. By treating them with just a cameo, it's almost like, oh, those people are jokes and they're assholes and they deserve to die. And I was like, I don't know. I would like to spend more time with just analyzing this here.
It does fall in that realm of the concept of what these people are at their base is presented to where, yeah, they do sometimes seem more interesting than the people who you're actually with. Like, that's what I've had a problem with the last few George Romero films, where it's like everyone that they're running into, it seems far more interesting. It seems their situation is far more horrific than the assholes I have to spend time with. It's like, let me hang out with this part. Let's hang out at this orgy just for a little bit longer, just to see what happens.
Yeah, I did want to see how that was going to play out in the little friendlies place or whatever. I was like, seriously, you're going to leave just as the hot Asian chick is climbing under the table to give you a blowjob?
Right. Just as soon as they bring out the jalapeno poppers, you're like, come on, man.
But that was one of those where he's like, oh, okay, let's go, let's get out of here. I'm like, well, why?
I mean, I get, because they've set up that character. I mean, the fact that, like I said, his wife leaves right at the beginning of the movie. He's already kind of fucked up by everything, much less the world ending. And he's just not one of those kinds of people. That's just not who he is. Those people are out there. World end or not everybody goes, let's drop ecstasy and have crazy sex. Some of them just go and cry in a corner and crawl up into a fetal position.
I'm a fool.
I know. I'd be trying to fuck Steve Carell in this movie. Come here.
Just to say you did it, yeah.
You think you're depressed now?
I miss you so much when you left the office.
Come here, Carell. You ain't 40 years old no more. Hard virgin. But, I mean, I like the movie. I probably am coming about it in the wrong way, because I'm praising the movie for its sweet intentions more than I'm actually praising the movie itself. And the more I think about the movie, it's heavily flawed. I mean, because they dropped the ball on a lot of concepts, a lot of in-the-world concepts that they could have done. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I don't know. Have we seen
well, the thing is...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, the thing is that you are hanging out with these characters, and I think that's kind of why I liked it more than probably should have, because the issues that it deals with, these people knowing that it's the end of the world, with them thinking like how they probably could have done, well, at least with Steve Carell's character, how he could have done things differently, and I like that, because I that's something I think all of us can relate to at some point, just missed opportunities, or somebody, the one person that got away, which you still can't wrap your head around the concept of why that happened, because just you want to be with somebody that meant something to you, and I think that's the cool thing, especially with the with the girl, with the female, Keira Knightley, to where there's like a really great moment, and I don't want to spoil it, but there's a great moment where she gets in contact with somebody she really cares about, and to where you realize, there's something a lot more deeper, which I think Steve Carell's character understands. And I thought it was just a great scene.
I thought Keira Knightley was really good in this too.
Yes, this is the first time I really looked at Keira Knightley to go, okay, wow, I really like her. She's almost like a shadow of Natalie Portman every time I see her. And I'm like, wow, I wish I could find a movie that I can say, that's a Keira Knightley movie that I really love. And this one, even though I can't say that, this is the first time where I noticed her as an actress, to where I'm like, you know what? I wish people would give her better roles.
Yeah.
One of the things I think I enjoyed actually the most about this, though, which was to do with those characters, was that it's one of the films that it comes ultimately trying to say, okay, this is a metaphor for just your whole life, right? Mm-hmm. On some way. You got to pull us apart and say, end of the world, well, just that you're going to die someday, right? Mm-hmm. And then it says, hey, man, this is the journey, not the destination. It doesn't matter if you have 5 minutes left, right, or whatever. It's still much more important to appreciate what you have around you when you have it. And I really got that the way it managed to get that across, that wasn't just on a Hallmark card. Right. You had to discover it along with the characters.
Yeah. A lot of people have said that they felt like there just wasn't any development in this movie, and I might be giving the movie a pass, or giving an excuse because of the whole in the world thing. But I do see it as something where there's not a whole lot of time for development, because people people are doing things to, and let's just forget about all the crazy stuff, the orgies, the drugs, the violence, the suicide, and all. This story of two people who are becoming close to each other. It seems like maybe it's sped up a little bit, but yeah, because they haven't.
Right, they're on a time clock.
Yeah, and even when you think about it, they're doing something crazy. It's just very quiet and very subtle and very emotional. So I really like that. I just thought it was a sweet film despite a lot of missed attempts, and it just kind of it worked for me in ways that I'm sure it's not going to work for a lot of people. So I'm gonna give it a low matinee.
I really wanted to like this movie, and I love the concept behind it. And this is one of those movies where if somebody described it to me, every piece of it, I'd be like, that sounds awesome. But ultimately, I was sitting there, and the execution of it wasn't working for me. Like I said, the Steve Carell just being like, yeah, this is half of his career all right here, and they know it. And they just go like, we ain't got to write it. You know what this guy does. And Keira Knightley's character, up until toward the end, I was just annoyed with her. I was just like, you know what? Normally, I always think this girl is being hot, but right now, I would hate to spend my last few days with her.
No, you wouldn't.
Like, yeah, I would.
You'd be all over that ass.
Oh, shit.
Well, after that.
You can't lie to us. We know you.
That'll be the one advantage. It's like you can have sex with an annoying girl and know that you ain't got to spend a whole lot of time with her after that.
This is
Honestly,
even better.
I think Steve Carell had bigger tits than her, but
Yeah, that is so true.
That cop had bigger tits.
The thing is, after so many scenarios not playing out, I was like, damn it, I gotta admit, I'm finding myself kind of bored and tiresome with this, and I'm like, I might have to give it a low rental. And I was like, wow, it's almost teetering on some old bullshit. No, really? Come on. No, it really was. I mean, I was being honest with myself. I'm like, I am at that point right now where I'm not even caring what's happening.
You giving up on life?
Until the last 20 minutes. And in the last 20 minutes, a lot of it comes together. It has a lot of emotional heart. And I was like, you know what? This right here, it's like you said, the beginning, which is funny, and the last part that is very touching, that's what makes it. And that pulled it up to me to be a high rental.
The funny thing is I know exactly what you're talking about because it's something that kind of raised your interest with that last Adam Sandler movie.
Oh, yeah, sure,
Yeah,
exactly,
okay.
yeah.
See, do I know you? Do I know you?
Not only does he know me, but I flashed exactly on that, too.
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's weird. I'm surprised you said low matinee, Corey, because you seem like you like it more than that from everything you're saying. Because I kind of agree with most of what you're saying. That it is uneven, and that's its biggest flaw, that it's back and forth and it kind of pulls you away from these characters you want to like more, but at the same time it does keep pulling me back in. There is a lot of really good things about it. There's nothing specifically bad about it except that it just seems a little disorganized, really. I mean, I like the soundtrack a lot. I loved, like you said, the last 20, maybe even 30 minutes of it. Thought it was terrific, although, warning, totally sad. This is a dramedy. You know, make no mistake. It's very sad last 30 minutes. I did enjoy it much more than I didn't, but I kept going, oh, God, they just missed an opportunity there. And you know what I mean? If they'd only toned that a little bit differently, I would have felt like this was all really happening and believed it. But ultimately, I give this a matinee. I think it's one of those films a lot of people are going to really get a lot from. It's not a great film, but it's a good film. Yeah. And I hope it's the road to better things for this director, who this, I believe, was her debut.
Yeah, she wrote, I think she wrote Nick and Nora's.
Of the adapted screenplay for Nick and Nora's.
What was it? Infinite Playlist
story,
or whatever. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree pretty much with everything you said, with the exception of Leon. But I get where you're coming from with that, Leon. But the way I felt about it is just
anyway.
You'll be dead soon.
I'm just giving him a reason to be here. That's all. No, but the thing is, it's one of those movies where how can we not love this type of concept? And with movies like this, people are going to. I think just people's idea of what it should have been are going to be all over the board. Just because you have your own concept of how you would treat a scenario, an end of the world scenario, and what that story would be about. And I love that people can play with that concept just while watching the movie. But for what the movie was, I mean, there were some bits in it where you'd run into characters and those situations wouldn't go anywhere. And to me, that was just like you guys. I'm sure that was a huge flaw. But I did like, after a time, I did like the characters I was spending time with because, as the movie goes on, that's when their relationship and just their idea about how they're treating the end of the world develops. And I can appreciate that. So I'm going to give it it was borderline where I'm like, man, would this even be considered a full price? But then I thought the whole concept of a Harold and Kumar End of the World movie, I'm like, no, it's not a full price. It is definitely a matinee.
Yeah.
So I mean, for a movie like this, I thought it could have gone south really quick, because I've seen plenty of these movies do that, where they just make it a joke, you don't care. The idea of the end of the world is just, yeah, so what, but hey, it's a matinee for me.
What makes me laugh the most is you starting off your review going, everybody loves these kind of movies. I'm like, what, you mean where the world ends? Goes with his doom cult.
I know. Yeah.
Am I alone on this?
yeah, you are.
Hi, welcome to Frenzies, where everyone's your friend.
I can't believe you guys are still open.
And do you know what? It's his birthday today.
Why didn't you tell me that? Happy birthday!
Yeah, we should go. We're on a road to nowhere.
You can't be serious.
How fast are you going?
15 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Given the couldn't you find it in your heart to give my friend here a fighting chance of being with the one he loves before we all reach our untimely conclusion?
No.